everyone, and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I am joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. On today's podcast, we will be discussing last weekend's English and Scottish Premier League results, previewing this weekend's Scottish League Cup final, reacting to previewing the Champions League and Europa League matches from this week. And at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So we'll just start off with all the English Premier League results. So from the last weekend. So on Saturday, the results were Crystal Palace 1, Liverpool 2, Brighton 1, Burnley 1, Manchester United 0, Bournemouth 3, Sheffield United 1, Brentford 0, Wolves 1, Nottingham Forest 1, Aston Villa 1, Arsenal 0. And then on Sunday, the results were Everton 2, Chelsea 0, Fulham 5, West Ham 0, Luton Town 1, Manchester City 2, and Tottenham 4, Newcastle United 1. So, Pearse, which match from last weekend's English Premier League results stands out to you?
Sorry, there's that many games that I have to touch on. I've got four teams, I think, 4 games that I think are just standout fixtures for me. So firstly, we'll touch on the Manchester United 0, Bournemouth 3. On the week where Manchester United won, we got Eric Ten Hag won Manager of the Month and Harry Maguire won Player of the Month in the Premier League, which somehow you're kind of, how has that happened? And then they drop a performance like that, because the fact is this isn't a shock result from Manchester United, because this season they've been up and down like a yo-yo, and they've been leaking goals left, right, and centre, and they've just not been scoring enough goals, and that's the problem of their season so far. And all credit's got to Bournemouth. I thought going to Old Trafford and getting a comfortable 3-0 victory, and it easily could have been more. That's just how bad the Manchester United were. But all credit's got to Bournemouth. I think they're surprising a lot of teams this season, because you expect them just to be hovering above the relegation, but that's a statement result. And so I think the next one for me would be Aston Villa 1, Arsenal 1. And I think you're the biggest fan of Unai Emery and what he's done at that football club in terms of transforming it from the demise that they were under Steven Gerrard's tutelage, because it just shows you what a top class manager can do. And before the match, they were on a 14 winning streak at Villa Park, and they've now made it 15 against Arsenal in a week. Would have now beaten Manchester City and Arsenal, last season's top 2. That is unheard of. And
result, yeah.
And where they sit in the league table is the stuff of dreams. And like, you look at some signings they made in the summer, they didn't break the bank, but they're smart signings. You look at somebody like Pau Torres. You know what I mean? Like, Diego Carlos came back last January. Like, smart signings that made the team solid. And like you say, in the summer, like Moussa Diaby as well, like, top quality players, but for the right amount of money. So it's just about being smart, and he's proven it in Spain. He's basically won everything, and he's really good in Europe as well. In terms of winning Europa League with Sevilla and Villarreal. Wasn't really given a chance at Arsenal, but by God, he's got him playing some phenomenal football, and so solid at the back, and they look as if they can hurt a lot of teams. And to play Man City off the park, and then to beat Arsenal, who are the nearest challengers as well, I think that speaks volumes of the man.
Do you think they can win the title?
Can they win the title?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they can, but I think for me, they're definitely, at the moment, they're definitely nailed on for top 4. If all according to plan in terms of keep their personnel fit, because it's a long haul season, and like you said, they've still got Europe. And you've got to look at a team like Spurs, who have not got Europe at all. So for me, it'd be between they two. I think the other 2 games will go with Everton 2, Chelsea 0. Like you say, Sean Dyche has turned a corner with Everton. Even with the 10-point deduction, they're not in the relegation anymore, and they're playing brilliant football. And Chelsea, who were on a decent run of form themselves, have now gone back to reverting to ways in terms of just looking just well off it. And I think, like you say, Goodison Park, I think Sean Dyche should going to make that focus. Although, according to the stats, they're better away from home, but it's a hostile atmosphere to go to, and I think Everton thoroughly deserved their win. And then the last game for me would be the Tottenham 4, Newcastle 1. Tottenham, who are on a five games without a win. Although they're playing some decent football, some injuries, but the win at the weekend is Newcastle. Thought it was a brilliant performance, back to their usual self, and I thought Son was the main man, the architect. 2 goals, wins a penalty and scores. Yeah, and I thought Newcastle, massive injury last weekend to Nick Pope, who is out for a pretty long time, 4 or 5 months. I think that will hamper their ambitions both in Europe and domestically, because I think Nick Pope at times gives a team like Newcastle points just by how good he is at his shot stop ability. And like you say, Tottenham, brilliant to see him get back to winning ways. And it was a thrilling and entertaining game. And the 4 matches for me were outstanding.
Yeah. I mean, there was so many games this weekend that were really good. I think it was a really good kind of weekend of Premier League football. Obviously, the Man United Bournemouth game stands out to me. That's my standout result because, you know, like the fact that Bournemouth and this, like, never would have thought, you know, Bournemouth could go to Old Trafford and win 3-0. And you know what? It's not really that much of a surprise anymore, to be honest. Like a result like that 10, 20 years ago for Man United would be like, it would be a disaster. You know, it'd probably be the worst result of their history. But results like that for Man United just aren't a surprise anymore. It kind of just shows where they are as a club and as a squad at the moment. So, I mean, what a result for Bournemouth, and Iraola's done a. I mean, it wasn't the best start as Bournemouth manager, but they've really picked up the last few games, and you know, this high tempo, high pressing football that they're playing, you know, it's really suiting them, and they're getting results now, and you know they're climbing up that table and picking up points, and you know. The difference between Man United and Bournemouth for me is Bournemouth have an identity. You know exactly how they're going to play, but Man United don't. They kind of just make it up as they go along. I feel every game. So yeah, that's my standout result from the weekend. Thought it was a brilliant result for Bournemouth. And then a close second is Aston Villa Arsenal game. Just you know, I mean, I say it every week on this podcast about Unai Emery, but like, yeah, I just can't help it because it's just a brilliant job that he's doing. It just really is. You know, when he came in after Steven Gerrard, you know, they went in a great place, and what he's done in just over a year is it's phenomenal, it really is. And they're right in a title race at the moment. You know, we don't know if that's going to last or not, because as you said, they do have European football to contend with as well. But you know, they've got a really, really good squad. You know, John McGinn, they got the goal. I mean, the improvement he's made under Unai Emery is just phenomenal as well. You know, and you know, it's hard. We don't know. I mean, we need to see where they are after Christmas, Aston Villa, because I feel like the next kind of couple of weeks is going to be pivotal for them because there's a lot of games coming up. But as you said, to have a week where they've beaten both Man City and Arsenal in the space of 4 days is, you know, it really is amazing. You know, and obviously, lastly, I just want to touch on Everton as well. The fact that they beat Chelsea 2-0. You know, I think that point deduction's really kind of, I don't know, this is something inside their head where they've just kind of rallied and it's them against the world. That kind of mentality they've got at the moment. You know, I mean, just brilliant. And, you know, Sean Dyche he deserves all the praise and all the credit because he doesn't really get all the headlines because of his name. And, you know, I don't think people really give him the appreciation that he does deserve because he's done an absolutely brilliant job with everything he really has. So, a standard result, but just overall is the Man United Bournemouth match. So we've got English teams playing in Europe this week. So I'll just quickly go through the Champions League matches that. So the English teams playing in the Champions League this week are PSV versus Arsenal, Manchester United versus Bayern Munich, and then on tomorrow it'll be Red Star Belgrade versus Man City, Newcastle versus AC Milan, and then in the and then in Europa League we've got Union Saint Gilloise versus Liverpool. We've got West Ham versus Freiburg, Brighton versus Marseille, and then in the Conference League we've got Zrinjski Mostar versus Aston Villa, and that's all the English teams playing in Europe this week. So is there a match there, Pearse, that stands out to you you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so not against Europa League or the Conference League, but I think most sides, the English sides that are in the European Conference League are already progressed into the next round. Talking about Aston Villa, Liverpool, Brighton. So nothing against that, but I'm going with the ones that have still got a lot on the line in the Champions League, and that is Manchester United versus Bayern Munich and Newcastle versus AC Milan. Both sides struggling, and they've still got a fighting chance to progress. And I think for me, the game that will start off as Manchester United Bayern Munich. So starting Manchester United, obviously get humbled at the weekend at home to Bournemouth was not obviously the perfect start, but on the flip side, Bayern Munich absolutely humbled themselves away from home to Frankfurt, which is a shock result. But both sides coming into it, Bayern Munich already qualified from the group, and obviously Harry Kane in the form of his life at the moment. I can only really see one winner, and I think that is going to be Bayern Munich. And I just don't see Man United outscoring Bayern Munich. I think it won't be a clean sheet. I think both defences are a bit shaky at the moment. But I think the difference maker will be Harry Kane. The man is just world class, and he scores as much as he creates as well. So I think it'll be bye-bye Europe for Manchester United after Christmas. In terms of the other game, I think Newcastle, AC Milan, we touched on the massive injury to Nick Pope and a few others in the Newcastle lineup. And AC Milan have been up and down this season. But I think obviously Newcastle will be buoyant with the St James's Park atmosphere. I think it's probably one of the most hostile atmospheres in Europe at the moment. You see what happened to PSG, they absolutely crumbled. And regardless of the personnel that are missing, I do think that crowd will be that 12th man, and I think they can get another famous victory, and hopefully Newcastle can progress into Europe beyond Christmas, and it'll be another memorable night at St James's Park, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to the two matches.
Yeah, it's a Man United Bayern Munich match for me that's a standout. It's such a historic fixture. There's so much history between the two clubs, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see how because they both got defeated very heavily at the weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of react. It's going to be an uphill task for Man United to get something from that match, because I don't see Bayern Munich kind of continuing that form that they showed on Saturday. They'll be definitely wanting to respond, and so Man United. But at the end of the day, the Bayern Munich just have more quality, and I do expect them to win. But a game like Man United Bayern Munich, although it's not the same as it was 20 years ago, it's still such a brilliant fixture. So that's the one I'm really looking forward to the most. And then just quickly, as you just said, the Newcastle AC Milan match, that's got a lot riding on it. It's such a great kind of group stage that group is. And Newcastle, who aren't in the greatest moment, they've lost heavily the last two games. And AC Milan aren't in a great bit of form as well. So yeah, they two matches are the ones that I'm looking forward to the most. So we'll move on to last weekend's Scottish Premier League results. So I'll just again quickly run through them. So on Saturday, the results finished: Aberdeen 2, Hearts 1, Livingston 0, Hibs 1, Motherwell 1, St Johnstone 1, Rangers 3, Dundee 1, St Mirren 2, Ross County 0. And then on Sunday, there was one match which finished Kilmarnock 2, Celtic 1. So, Pearse, which match stands out to you the most?
I think it's going to be a short result. Is Kilmarnock 2, Celtic 1. I think you kind of start the Scottish football because it's another short result in the SPL. Celtic's first defeat this season, but if you're going on recent performances, this result has probably been coming for a number of weeks. Celtic haven't been at a free-flowing best. They've been kind of getting just scraping by results in terms of getting picked up like a draw or late winners. And they've not really had like a full 90 minutes performance that's been outstanding apart from the Aberdeen game where they just blew them out the water. But they got off to a perfect start in the first half, take the lead, go on at the break, leading. But at the back, when you've not got somebody like Cameron Carter-Vickers, and you're missing key players all over the park, like in terms of the attacking front line, like you're Kyogo on the bench, you've got Maeda injured, you've got Abada injured, you've got Hatate injured, but there was no real quality in terms of all the possession that Celtic had because once Kilmarnock get after them in terms of the high press, put them under pressure, they just looked like the more dominant side in the second half and they thoroughly deserved a victory. And who knows, maybe it will force Celtic to spend more money in January because I think reinforcements are needed. Because you look at some of the players that are coming off the bench for Celtic, or even starting players like Mikey Johnson, James Forrest, who in 2023 most Celtic fans or Scottish football fans would be like, how are they still at the club? Because I need to call upon them, so just throwing players on just for the sake of it. But you've got to give tremendous credit to Kilmarnock and Derek McInnes because that's now twice they've played Brendan Rodgers' the Celtic side in both the Cup and the league, and they've won both matches at Rugby Park. And it's another difficult venue for Celtic to go to under Brendan Rodgers. I think he's never had an easy time in terms of going and trying to play in plastic pitches, whether it be Livingston or Kilmarnock. So the other standout fixture for me would be the Rangers 3, Dundee 1. I think obviously just keeping the pressure on Celtic at the moment, just try to pick up the results. And Dundee themselves have been on pretty decent form. And Dundee did take the lead early on in the game, catch the Rangers cold at the start of the match. And then obviously I think the major talking point in this game was the penalty for Tavernier, which for me, never in a million years was it a penalty on Abdullah Sima. Just jumping for the ball, put shoulder to shoulder, flings his arms up there, and somehow the referee goes to the VAR monitor and overturns it. Because for me, it's like you see that every second day, every game, like players barging each other, shoulder to shoulder, wrestling. Like it was like minimum contact, and for me, it's never a penalty. And then obviously the red card that Rangers have now subsequently appealed on Jose Cifuentes, which for me, I don't think you've got any grounds for appeal. I think that is it's high, it's late, and it's a stamp. And for me, that should remain a red card. But not another impressive victory for Rangers as they keep the pressure on Celtic and cut the gap from 8 points to 5 with a game in hand.
Yep. Obviously, the Celtic matches that stand out. It's the shock of the weekend in Scottish football. And you have to say that there's a title race in Scotland now between Celtic and Rangers. There's only 5 points between the two clubs now. And, Celtic were in quite a good kind of commanding, comfortable position not that long ago. And now, after a few games, the gap's been cut and 5 points. It's quite, and there's still lots of matches to go. So, definitely is a title race. And Celtic will be, I think they'll be concerned at the moment because their performances haven't been great. They were really good in the first half against Kilmarnock, but the second half they were really, really bad. They just didn't get started at all. And Kilmarnock at the end of the day probably did deserve to win. They were the team that were the most on the front foot, more aggressive than Celtic. They looked like they wanted it more in Celtic as well. So, it was a shock result. I didn't expect it, to be honest. I thought Celtic would win. So a really shock result. And definitely a title race in Scotland now. Absolutely. And I just wanted to briefly touch on Aberdeen, who beat Hearts 2-1. Aberdeen, that Barry Robson will be feeling a lot less pressure now because that was probably a must-win game for him. I think if Hearts were have to win that game, I don't think Barry Robson, think he'd be in a bit of trouble in terms of his job security. So for Aberdeen to win that, it's really important for Barry Robson, and he'll now not hope that that'll kick them on in the future games that they've got coming up. One specific game that we'll talk about in just a moment. So yeah, the Celtic result is definitely the big result of the weekend in Scottish football. And I think that was the game that we've now realised that there's going to be a title race in Scotland now. So we just wanted to briefly also discuss the Scottish League Cup final, which is going to be played this Sunday, which is 17th of December, and it's going to be between Rangers and Aberdeen. So Pearse, what do you think about that match coming up? Who do you think is going to win? How do you think the game's going to play out? What do you think?
It's going to be a blockbuster match. Thoroughly looking forward to it. And I do think Aberdeen will look to be buoyant from that result of the weekend against Hearts. And we'll talk shortly later, but they've got a European match midweek, which I don't think they'll play any of their key men. I think they'll just be resting solely on the final because it's a chance to win silverware. And Aberdeen have not won a piece of silver since I think Derek McInnes' time at the helm. So it's been a long time coming, but obviously the overriding favourites will be Rangers, and the chance for Philippe Clement to get his hands on silver being in the helm only a matter of months. And obviously his form's picked up recently, so they're in a good place at the moment. Both sides, it's going to be an still encounter. I think it just will be who's more decisive in the key areas in terms of up front, and who's more clinical when they get the chances, and who's more resolute at the back. Because I think both sides are pretty good in terms of both areas. Although you say Barry Wilson under pressure for his job, but I think he's done a tremendous job so far, and I think it'd be extremely harsh if he was to get sacked at the weekend if the result didn't favour Aberdeen, because obviously he's got his side into a cup final, got European football, group stage football. So I think he's done a good job, and obviously he's trying to balance his squad with Europe and domestic football's been a bit of an issue, but I think after Christmas, I think you'll see probably the best Aberdeen side kick on and push on in the league. But in terms of the cup final itself, I think it could go either way. But I'm going to go for a short result. I'm going to say a narrow Aberdeen win. I think players like Miovski and Duke will be too hot to handle for the Rangers defence, and yeah, that's my prediction for the final.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be it's an exciting match. I'm really looking forward to it. Two teams that at the end of the day deserve to be there. Both sides are kind of in a Rangers and quite. I think I'd say they're in a good moment. I'm not sure about Aberdeen, although we just said that they won at the weekend there. They're not in the greatest of moments. And Rangers will be. I don't think they've won the Scottish League Cup, in quite a while now, so they'll be really determined to get that hoodoo kind of off their back. And also, as you said, Philippe Clement will want to pick up his first piece of silverware. In terms of my prediction, I'm going to say Rangers will win that because just due to the fact of the form that they're in at the moment, I just think Rangers are in a better place than Aberdeen. Both teams have a big European match coming up this week, which we'll just discuss in a second. But I'm looking forward to it because Rangers Aberdeen's always quite a good match. It's always quite feisty. It's always quite competitive as well. So the fact that add a final on top of that, I think it's going to be quite a good spectacle.
Well, if you look at previous results, Tom, this season between Aberdeen and Rangers, Aberdeen went to Ibrox, got a famous victory, and then the match at Pittodrie recently, it was a 1-1 draw. So If it's
Yeah, there
anything
you go.
like that, it's going to be set for an absolute blockbuster.
Yeah, absolutely. There you go. What Aberdeen have obviously had the better of the results in their first two matches between the sides this season. So that again, that kind of adds more to it. It's always a really good match. Rangers Aberdeen. It's always really competitive. I've always really enjoyed watching the match between these two. So no, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really good final. But I just think Rangers will have a bit too much for Aberdeen at the weekend, and I think they'll lift the trophy. So we'll just, as we were just discussing, we'll talk about the European matches the Scottish clubs will be playing in this week. So in the Champions League, we've got Celtic versus Feyenoord. In the Europa League, we've got Real Betis versus Rangers, and in the Conference League, we've got Aberdeen versus Eintracht Frankfurt. So, what do you think about these matches, Pearse? How do you think they're going to play out?
The one that's most riding on it would be the Rangers Real Betis. Away in Spain, it's going to be a very difficult task. And like you say, we've got the cup final on Sunday as well. So I think Rangers need to juggle both competitions pretty well. They cannot afford to rest any players in Europe because they want to be in the knockout stages beyond Christmas. And the group as it stands is very tight. And Real Betis at the weekend got a 1-1 draw against Real Madrid, and they were thoroughly deserving of a point in that game. So they're a very dangerous side. And even when they played at Ibrox, when Rangers got a narrow victory, I thought Betis at times played Rangers off the park, but Rangers just were more clinical. They were very wasteful that night, and I think Jack Butland as well was key. And I think again he'll have to be pivotal in terms of keeping the ball at the back of the net, because I think he's been an outstanding signing for the Rangers. And like you say, Rangers, although they've been picking up good results, but in the attacking area, they've not really got any scorers at the moment. Like Danilo has not been scoring, Dessers has not really been great. I think the only one that's really contributing up front is Abdullah Sima, who has got double figures. So I think him and Tavernier are the key men in terms of an attacking outlet for Rangers in terms of getting the goals. Like you say, Tavernier scored his 60th penalty the weekend for Rangers. He is the talisman for Rangers, especially in Europe, and he'll be one of the key men if they to get any result. But I do think Betis will have a bit too much for them, and I think Betis will get the victory there. And in terms of Aberdeen Frankfurt, I think that's an easy Frankfurt victory, even though it's at Pittodrie. I think Aberdeen will have sole focus on that cup final at the weekend, and they'll rest a lot of the key players, and they'll not want to risk any injuries because I think they're already out of Europe, and the fact is, winning a piece of silver is more important, in my opinion, for any football club. And in terms of the Celtic Feyenoord, Celtic have not got a victory this season in the Champions League, and I think they want to go out with a bang. And obviously, Brendan Rodgers will be looking for a massive reaction from the weekend, because we touched on it last week that it was angry he'd ever been in half time against St Johnstone. Well, I'm pretty sure he'd been exactly the same after the game at Rugby Park, because it was another unacceptable second half performance, and they thoroughly deserved to get beat. But Feyenoord are a decent opposition, and Celtic at times in the first game of the group stage were in the tie until they went down to 9 men. So just about keeping the discipline and being clinical. And at times in this group stage, Celtic have proven that they can compete at the level, but it's doing it for a prolonged period of time over 90 minutes. And I do predict a Celtic win, a narrow Celtic win, because I think they want to go out with a bang. And obviously, in front of fans at Parkhead, I think they will have a bit too much for Feyenoord.
Yep. I'll just start off quickly with the Celtic Feyenoord match. So nothing really to play for Celtic. They are out. It's that's confirmed. But as you said, they do have something to play for because of the fact that they haven't won a Champions League match in a long, long time. So they want to get that hoodoo off their back. Um, I'm not really sure how this is going to play out because Celtic aren't in the greatest of moments. They're not really kind of firing all cylinders at the moment, and because of the fact that they're not really, they've just come back off a defeat as well. I just don't see them winning. I just have a feeling it'll be a draw in that match. I've always had the feeling that match will end up in a draw. And as you said, Celtic will be frustrated because they have competed at times in this group stage, but at the end of the day, they've just not had enough to kind of kind of get the 3 points at the end of these matches. So yeah, I'm going to say a draw for that match. And then in Europa League, which is a big match, which is between Real Betis and Rangers. Rangers have to get something from the match if they want to progress into the knockout stages of the Europa League. And they're going to have to go away to Real Betis, which is going to be, a tough ask for them. I think they're capable of it. I definitely do think they're capable of it. They are missing Danilo because he's now out until after New Year, so that's quite a big blow for them. That'll also be a blow for them in the cup final as well. I'm going to say I don't know why, but I have a feeling Rangers will do that. I actually think they'll get the points that they need to progress to the knockout stage. I think they just need to win. So yeah, so I actually think they'll do it. They always seem to be pretty. When European matches, they always seem to have enough to kind of get the job done. And I can see them doing it. But it's going to be it's going to be a tough ask, and I wouldn't be surprised if Real Betis did win that match because Real Betis are a really good side, and they're at home as well. So, but I'm going to say Rangers will will win that match, and then lastly, just the Aberdeen Frankfurt match again. It's kind of a dead rubber match. Aberdeen are out. That's confirmed. And as you said, I think this will be the match that Aberdeen will not really care about at all because their sole focus will be in Europe on the Scottish League Cup final, which is on Sunday. So I'm expecting Frankfurt to win that because at the end of the day, they have far much more quality than Aberdeen. Frankfurt have just come off a 5-1 victory against Bayern Munich as well, so that's just going to make the task even harder for Aberdeen. So I'm going to say Frankfurt win that, and I think it'll probably be a comfortable evening for them. But you never know. But yeah, so these are my kind of predictions for the Scottish clubs that are playing in Europe this week. So I just want to briefly touch on a bit of news that happened just today, and it was about a Turkish referee. So the Turkish football club president, he's the president of Ankara Guku. He got arrested today because he ran on the pitch yesterday and punched the Turkish referee in the face. And as a result of that, the Turkish referee was badly injured. He ended up having to go to hospital. And this incident meant that all the Turkish football matches were suspended. So all this came about because the Ankara Guku team, they conceded a penalty in the last minute. And obviously the team weren't happy, and the president ran on the pitch and violently assaulted the referee that gave away the penalty. So I just want to touch on it, Pearse. I mean, it's quite a shocking story, but what do you think about it? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Did you say you get arrested? The president? Yeah.
Yeah, the president got arrested, so he's been arrested after punching the referee. And the referee, he's actually in the hospital at the moment, kind of recovering from what's happened. But I mean, it's just a shocking incident, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I've seen the footage this morning. I think it's something that you just see on a football pitch, regardless if you can see the last minute penalty equaliser. Unacceptable for a club president to come down and violently assault the referee, and you've seen the images where the eye is completely swollen and he's knocked unconscious. It's something you never want to see, and I think he should be severely punished for that, and rightly so. I think the Turkish FA has done tremendous in terms of postponing all fixtures in the Turkish league because that behaviour is unacceptable, and they should make an example of the president for doing such violent act because that deserves jail time from what he's done. And and I think they've done brilliantly there. But I think it's an
No,
unacceptable,
yeah.
violent act.
No, you're spot on. You're spot on about what you said about making an example, because I just think referees are getting far too much abuse. And I mean, the footage that we saw, I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, you could be unhappy with the fact that the referee gave away a penalty, but I mean, there's just no need for that at all. I mean, it's just it goes beyond, and there's just no explanation for it. There's like it's absolutely out of order. And that president should be given the harshest penalty possible. And it just kind of raises a concern about the safety of referees, because they're getting far too much abuse. And you know, we've just saw the biggest example of the fact that they're just getting violence used against them, and it's inexcusable. It really is. And you know, I definitely think there has to be something. I definitely think not just Turkish referees, but referees around the world. I do think they need far much more kind of security. Um, you know, because I just think that these kind of incidents, I'm not going to be surprised if these things. I hope not, but like this might not be the last time we see something like that.
Well, I think that's a sad indictment of the way the game's going, Tom, if that's going to be the case,
Yep.
because that'll turn a lot of boys and girls off in terms of wanting to become a referee if they're seeing things like this. Because literally one decision and they're getting brutally assaulted. And like you said, there has to be more protection for referees because, like you say, not just in the public eye, but certainly in the media, they kind of cane the referees in terms of decisions, VAR, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they're human beings. They're doing a job. Human error can happen in any line of work, and I don't think they should be made as scapegoats. And yeah, I think they should, like you say, I second what you say. I think there should be more protection for referees because that cannot ever happen again.
No, absolutely, totally agree. And you know, let's hope we don't have a discussion like that again on the podcast, because it's just not acceptable. So for the final part of the show, Pearse will now give his Asian football roundup.
Yeah. So in terms of Asian football news, leagues have officially finished in Japan and Korea. So we'll start with some breaking news, and that is that Kevin Muscat has officially left his post as the boss of UECL F Marinos after an unforgettable tenure with the tricolour. Muscat leaves after 2.5 years at the helm of UECL F Marinos. Sadly, it didn't end with back-to-back titles, but he leaves having won the G League One trophy in 2022 and the club's first ever Japanese Super Cup this year. The Aussie leaves with a reputation enhanced whilst bringing attacking football to Japan. Big things to come, and I have no doubt he'll land a top job in Europe soon. So the KFA have announced that South Korea will play a friendly match on the 6th of January, and the opposing team will be Iraq. So that's perfect preparation for the Asian Games that are due in January, February. So Pohang Steelers manager Kim Gi-dong is in talks with SC Fuel and has verbally agreed to take over as manager of FC Seoul. Pohang Steelers have acted quickly to this news and are set to appoint former Yabian Funde manager Park Tae-ha as the new manager of the team. The K-League have announced that it will abolish the Asian player quota in the K-League 1 starting from the 2025 season. Now each K-League team can register 6 foreign players in the squad and 4 can play at the same time. So the K-League have also decided that if a foreign player has played in Korea for a total of 5 years or 3 consecutive years before they're 18 years old, signs a professional contract with a K-League team, then the player won't be considered as a foreign player. This is a rule for young foreigners who were born in Korea or immigrated to Korea. This rule will apply from the 2025 season, and that's all your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye-bye.